What's up, guys? Welcome back to Blondes Building Equity. We have an exciting guest today because we have an Airbnb specialist. We've had some really amazing guests, but this is actually our first really specialist in the Airbnb space, which is really exciting for you guys because you don't really have to have a lot of money to get into that space if you do arbitrage. So I'm really excited. I want you guys to welcome Jorge Contreras. He lives in... We really say. So yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself, Jorge. Tell us a little about you. I want you to give me like the 2-minute brag sheet. Like I want you to go full force. Tell me what you're about. Tell the people don't feel bad bragging because I want to know.
What, like the most you've ever done, how much money you've made, all of that.
I love it. So yeah, again, guys, Jorge Contreras. I reside in Orange County, California. I started buying real estate about 10 years ago in 2012, did long-term tenants up until 2016. And then in March of 2017, I launched my first 4 Airbnbs on the Airbnb platform, kept doing that for a while. And then in 2019, I discovered the arbitrage model, which we'll get into later, but no down payments, no closing costs. It was strictly a cash flow play, which was the priority at the time. And then that only helped me accelerate my purchasing strategy. So we have 18 properties, 8 that we own, 7 that we sublease, 3 that we manage. We're doing about $150K a month gross revenue, about $30,000 net a month just from the Airbnb business alone. And then 4 years ago, I also started a coaching company teaching people how to create passive income and financial freedom with or without owning real estate.
So what makes more, the coaching company or Airbnbs?
They're both multiple 7-figure businesses, so they're both doing really, really good.
Wow, that's incredible. It's something cool. Like I think the coaching business is in real estate has really taken off. Everybody we've had on the podcast so far is really into the coaching space, but I like what you're doing with the arbitrage. So how has it kind of been affected right now? I feel like things aren't. Before it was really fun. Everybody was like, getting Airbnbs and doing that kind of travel style. Has it changed at all lately?
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely been like a slowdown overall. The good thing is ever since we started getting into this business, we've always never just relied on short-term rentals. So we know how to cater to like nurses, corporate bookings, relocation companies, government bookings. And so we do attract a lot of those 30-day plus bookings that, where we only need one cleaning and it's just easier to manage. And I think that as long as you incorporate that.
Oh, you said nurses, the clientele for people that are staying like 30 days?
Yeah, like 30-day plus. I mean, like Airbnb just produced a report for their second quarter earnings, like the most amount of money, the most amount of bookings. And also bookings are on average like 25% longer this year than they were last year. So people are staying longer at Airbnbs. And I think that's because of all those different things, the relocation companies and nurses. And so if you incorporate the short-term rentals with like midterm rentals, definitely helps keep your occupancy a lot higher and be able to cash flow really well.
That's what I was thinking because I know here in LA, because we fix and flip homes, which is really, but everybody always asks us, why haven't you thought about holding them? Why don't you do Airbnb? And definitely those are options for us. But in the LA market, I don't know how it is in the OC. I know you do some other places as well, but in LA market, Airbnb is really taboo right now, really hard to do. You have to have it has to be above a 2-week stay, right?
So typically in the city of LA, they give you a 90-day permit. And then once you're like 2 weeks to completing those 90 days, you have to apply for an extension. And so far for our properties and all of our students, that we've been able to, get those extensions to operate for the whole year. But it is a little bit of a tedious process online and following up. But the good thing is that you can do it.
Wow. So what does that look like for your students when you're teaching them? Is it like they're buying their first Airbnb and do they have like a coach alongside them to like call?
You mean like in our coaching program? Yeah, I mean, we have group coaching calls pretty much every day of the week, Monday through Sunday. Some are objection handling, how to pitch landlords. We have networking calls. We have calls where all we do is call landlords for 2 hours and students get to listen. Those who have been there for a couple weeks or a couple months can also call landlords themselves once they feel confident on the script. And then we also teach purchasing, how to do HELOCs, refis, how to build even a little bit on the syndication model, how to raise capital through private money, just all these different strategies so that they never run out of being able to do deals. Because eventually you'll always run out of your own money, but you can never run out of, raising capital and keep doing deals that way. So, but all of our group coaching programs also come with one-on-one coaching. So they get like either 12 or 24 one-on-one coaching calls. And in our mastermind, our highest level, we also have 3 in-person events. They happen to be this weekend, actually.
Wow. Okay. So let's break it down for someone that's watching this for the first time. What is Airbnb arbitrage?
Yeah, so Airbnb arbitrage is the process where you rent a property. Of course, we are getting permission in writing from the owners, and then we launch them on the short-term rental platform.
For the first step, you get permission from the owner. How do you find the owner? How do you know that they want to rent it out? Where does that start?
Yeah, so we go on the platforms just like Zillow.com or similar platforms. We find properties that we like. Once we validated that the regulation in the city allows you to get a permit, then step 2 is to look into softwares like MashVisor or AirDNA, which are basically our comps, to validate that we can make double or more whatever we're going to have in a rent or in a mortgage payment. And then step 3 is where we call the landlord and then we view the property, sign a contract, and then launch.
So what would you say, like typically, I mean, how many landlords you need to talk to before you can kind of find one that's interested? I mean, what's the benefit for the landlord? How much are you offering them?
So we're offering the fair market rent. Personally, I've never had to offer more. I have had some students that have paid maybe $100 to $300 above market if it's like in a really competitive area and the landlord wants to make additional cash flow and they want to also get some of the upside. But that's pretty much what I've done is I've always paid fair market.
How does a landlord say okay to that when don't they understand the risk of having someone rent out their property to like multiple people? Isn't that a high risk for them?
I mean, it's not a risk because in the contract, we let them know, we put in there in writing that we're going to be responsible for any maintenance or if there's any repairs or any type of damage, like we're paying for that. And just like a hotel, right? If you check into a hotel, they're going to take your credit card. If you create any type of damage, they're going to charge your credit card. So we basically pass that cost on to the guest and we're able to submit claims up until 14 days after the guest checks out. So then that gives them the peace of mind. But I think at the end of the day, like I have this one sublease that's like pretty high end. We pay almost $5,000 in rent. It's in Long Beach, California. And out of 10 people that went to go look at the property, I was the only one who wasn't going to live there. But they picked me because of my financials, my experience, my credit score. They felt that I was the strongest tenant, even more than people that were actually going to live there.
Wow. But you wouldn't be the tenant though, right? You would be...
Well, I'm the tenant on the lease. And then getting permission to then sublease the property. My company's name or my name is going to be on the lease agreement, right, to lease the property for 12 months. But within the lease, I have permission to then use it as a short-term rental.
Oh, I love this. I mean, you see it so much, like I feel like on TikTok and Instagram, it's a very hot topic and hot market. But I feel like it really did get competitive. How has it been for you guys in that space? There's so many Airbnbs now. Has it like hurt your business? Have you had any students kind of fail or struggle? I like the fact that at least for fix and flippers right now, obviously times are scary. We really got to be tighter with all of ours that we have right now. Selling them off is a little bit scary, but for you guys, I feel like there's less risk. I mean, you take on a lease, worst case, you have to cover that lease, but
yeah, worst case, I mean, again, this has never happened before, but if you had to break the lease and, lose out on the deposit, that could be the worst case scenario. But typically, if there was a situation where, say, the student was like negative couple $100 a month in cash flow, they could always put a long-term tenant in there for the remainder of the lease. And as long as they paid fair market rent, they should be able to find someone willing to pay fair market rent for the remainder of the lease. And at the end of the lease, they could just collect their deposit and walk away. That's really the worst that could happen. I've never had a student actually break a lease because they could just put a long-term tenant in there since they have permission to do that.
So let's go back to kind of like your first project that you did. How did you kind of like get into Airbnb arbitrage?
So I got into the arbitrage because when I started my coaching program 4 years ago, 100% of my students were buying real estate and then putting their properties on the Airbnb platform. And then I had this student, single mom of 2 out of San Diego, and she had the money, but she didn't have the credit. She didn't qualify to purchase a property. And so I had told her, like, you know what, if you're committed, I'll find a way to help you because, I wanted to help her spend more time with her kids. And so I was learning a little bit about the arbitrage at the time, and I helped her secure her first lease, and she was started making like $3,500 a month of cash flow with her first property in San Diego. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. She put like $20K into it total, where I'm over here buying properties, maybe putting $100,000 to $200,000, and she's making just as much cash flow as I would if I owned it. And that's when we went all in on the subleasing side.
So you were teaching before you got into it?
Well, There was this unique situation where she couldn't buy, but she really wanted to create passive income and financial freedom. So yes, I told her that I was committed to helping her if she was committed to helping herself. So I helped her. And then after that, I went and launched a ton of my properties and then started teaching that strategy.
Wow, I love that. So now that you've kind of done Airbnb arbitrage, you've bought the Airbnbs, you've bought long-term rentals, all of those things, what is your favorite now? Like, what would you recommend? If you were going to start all over, what would your strategy be?
Yeah, I mean, if I had a couple $100,000, then I would go straight into purchasing, right? You can get the equity. Obviously, that's where the long-term wealth is going to be created. But for like the 90% of people that are not in a position to drop, 20% down plus furniture, subleasing is a great way for them to start, build their capital, their experience, and then go into the purchasing as they attain more capital.
So they would basically just go on Zillow and find places that are renting, go to that, whoever it is, the listing agent or the actual landlord, and tell them, listen, here's my credentials, my credit. I'm going to put it under my name. I'm responsible for everything, and you're going to give me permission to rent it out. So they rent it for, let's say, $1,200 a month that's their lease agreement. And then they go to Airbnb and maybe get like $2,000 or $3,000. So the rest is just like cash flow.
Exactly. So the difference from what they pay to what they make. And we have like a model where we want to be able to break even at 10 days. So like if someone's renting a property for say $3,000 a month, maybe it's a single family home, we want to be able to host larger groups of people like 8 to 12 so that we could charge $300 a night. We could break even at 10 nights, double at 20 and triple at 30.
Right. And so what's the occupancy rate normally for the areas that you kind of have your Airbnbs in? Like
we're at about like a 77% occupancy right now, like in our whole portfolio. And we're in like 7 different cities, all in Southern California.
That's pretty good. How was it better during COVID?
I mean, like last year, there was a higher occupancy, probably like 88%.
Right. Because right after COVID, everyone wanted to like get out.
Yeah, everybody was like sick and tired of being stuck at home. And it was like, like this rubber band effect and people just wanted to get out.
I think that Airbnb is kind of like a lot more popular now because of COVID. Because I was listening to this podcast like during COVID, and he was talking about how COVID kind of helped people understand that instead of hotels, they can just go and rent somebody's house and like go out in the middle of nowhere and like the wilderness, and like those places are more popular. Do you agree with that? Have you seen that numbers?
Even personally during COVID, we weren't able to like or we chose not to, right? Like travel by plane. So what we did is we rented properties like near the beach in Long Beach that have pools and jacuzzis. And we just stayed in the properties for 3 days, like just to kind of change up the environment. And I noticed that too. There was a lot of people that, again, although they weren't able to travel by plane, they started traveling by car, staying in the same cities, nearby cities. And if you're able to create a staycation experience, like most of our properties have pools, jacuzzis, and game rooms where, again, you can have a great time in the home without needing to go somewhere like in particular. So that's become more popular. And I think a lot of people started transitioning into that model during COVID, which definitely helped them, still be able to maintain their businesses.
So how many Airbnbs are you managing right now?
We have 18 properties.
How was it on like the scaling of that? Just because I know, at least in LA, getting an apartment here in LA, they are really, really strict about checking if you make 3 times the income, if you have your amazing credit. So I can only imagine having 5 properties under your credit score, under your name. Does that become a problem?
Well, the properties don't show up on your credit report. That's the first thing, right? And yeah, it's true. Sometimes that is a challenge for students, right? If they don't make 2 or 3x the requirement, a lot of times it's 3. Then if they have like 6 months of rent reserves, sometimes that could offset depending on the landlord, or bringing in a business partner just so that they have 2 incomes versus just 1. For that same one that I mentioned earlier that I got in Long Beach, they still wanted me to put up a second deposit just because it's like a very high-end property. They had just done like a $200,000 renovation on this really nice craftsman home 2 blocks from the beach. So one of those 3 things will typically work.
Wow. And so my other question for you is, you live in California. What is kind of your tax strategy with the Airbnb arbitrage? Because even like, are you putting these under an LLC, or are they under your personal name? Because we tried when we were qualifying for our apartment, I was trying to put it under my LLC and show the income that was made from my corporation and not from me as an individual. And they were crazy. And I'm like, with taxes, I pay myself as an individual very little. And then my corporation is in Delaware and we funnel it through. So I wouldn't have qualified on just my personal return. So what's your kind of tax strategy? What do you recommend?
In order to qualify, or just how do we deal with taxes in general?
I want to know both.
Yeah, so all of my properties have my personal name on it, and our strategy, I personally don't have any apartments. Everything is a single family home except for one that's a triplex, and that's one of the ones that I own. But all the ones I sublease and everything else is single family homes, typically 3-2s or larger. And so as far as the qualification part, I mean, I personally have a high income, so I have like no problem. Like I said, for my students, it's an extra deposit, a business partner, or if they have 6 months of reserves. And then the actual strategy, we do cost segregation on the properties that we own, on all the investment properties, to then offset ordinary income. So for like last year, I was able to eliminate like 85% of my taxes just because of cost segregation in the properties that I do own.
Right. Super smart. Yeah. So you're taking everything and you're triple spending into buying like a property that you own to do a cost seg.
Right. So definitely the cost seg.
Is it like a conventional loan? Like a 30-day or 30-year conventional, like?
Everything is a 30-year conventional loan. So we've done a lot of 15, 20%, and I've even done like a 10% vacation home a couple times.
But have you ever thought about doing an interest-only loan?
I would consider it. I would definitely consider it, especially if it was like short-term financing, and then maybe I had a different type of exit strategy, or maybe if I needed to, right? Maybe if that's all that qualified me. But my mortgage lender, I know he's done that with 2 of my students where they got into like an interest only, and then he gave them the option of paying into the principal as an option, but they didn't have to.
I feel like it might be a time too right now where like things are sitting on the market and you can really use some creative financing instead of arbitrage, where you get a subject to and then Airbnb that subject to out to be able to cover the note plus more. Like there's a lot of creative ways you can go about. That's what I like about real estate too, and fix and flipping, and having that option that if, worst case scenario, we wanted to hold on to something, then we can Airbnb it. You can long-term rental it. There's a lot of options, which is really, really nice. We actually had a couple on the podcast, and they're absolutely killing it. And they were fix and flippers all the way, and now they are like, we love our Airbnbs. They're doing only short-term rentals now with all of their flips. So do you kind of do like value adds with the places you buy, and then kind of burr out, and then what's your strategy there?
Yeah, recently, most of our properties, we've done some type of upgrade. Like we just launched one in Joshua Tree about 3 weeks ago, and we got that one off market for like $200,000 below market value. But that one just needed paint. We have other ones where I've remodeled like everything. And in previous years, I even have some that I just bought like turnkey. I wanted to just buy them and put them up on Airbnb for time's sake. But luckily, I bought them years ago, and so obviously they've still appreciated, even though I didn't do any type of value add.
What's your background in? So like, I know you were talking about you got into like coaching and then you got into the real estate Airbnb, but like before that, before you had like an interest, like who are you? Like what's your background? What's your story?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm 35 now. When I was 20, I actually was a professional Latin dance instructor.
Professional Latin dance instructor?
Look at that. That made Jessica really excited there. I haven't seen her smile this big the whole time.
When I was like 15, I took like Latin dance class, and it was like the thing ever.
So what I'm hearing is we need a dance battle.
That's right. Shimmy. So yeah, so when I was 20, I dropped out of community college. I quit my job at the bank, and I've been, entrepreneur full-time, working for myself for the last 15 years. And I created like 8 streams of income, all from the dance business. So I used to own 2 Latin dance festivals. I used to run this like nightclub. I had a choreography company. Both of my parents were born in Mexico, and I was born here in Orange County. Out of like maybe, 50,000 instructors, there was like all the originals that got together, and they basically came up with the list. And so I was like number 8 in the world as far as like world renowned. Even before YouTube was popular, like by 2010, I already had over 10 million views on like YouTube. And it was a pretty big, like successful company. But the problem with it is I felt like I ran that business like a job. So whenever I talk about becoming financially free, it was when I left that business 5 years ago, because that business always required me to trade time for money. I was like working 14 hours a day. And it got to the point where I actually injured my back and ended up having a back surgery 10 years ago. The doctor said it was a 50-50 chance I would never walk again. And that was like the turning point where I was like, man, how do I make money without using my hands, without using my body, just using my intellect? And that's when I went all in on real estate, and I became a student at the Rich Dad Poor Dad company back in 2015.
Oh, now the kid talking is the best.
What?
And within 18 months, I became financially free and I became a part of the sales team in the company. And we used to travel. They used to fly me out across the country and we would deliver the education. I was a part of the sales team. So I would enroll people into the education. And that's kind of where my mind started, like just having these ideas about creating my own mentorship in the future. And I got to see how they did it. At the time, they were the world's largest real estate education company. And but yeah, that's sort of my background. But I've always been a business owner for the last 15 years, and I built multiple 7-figure companies. So I probably invested over $500,000 into just mentors and coaches, from like Tony Robbins to like all these big names, just on like business development, building teams and systems and processes and all that stuff.
But you have a lot more experience, if I'm hearing this correctly, in kind of like the event space, but also like teaching and coaching and being around that.
Yeah, because even as a dance coach, like a lot of times I was coaching them on like mindset, and like all the personal development just transfers over. So I've always been a coach. That's always been what's been closest to my heart. And in addition to the events, I had a choreography company. So we had like a ladies team, different levels of bachata. We had a hip hop team, a jazz and contemporary, like a lot of different things. I would bring in people from the commercial world and they would join our company, and then we would start teams teaching what they would know. I would also run a nightclub. We would put concerts together. I mean, it was just crazy. It was just a lot of different streams of income, but all from the dance business.
Wow. So your life is probably so different now. So do you have a good, you're working 14 to 16 hour days. You said like we're really big on work-life balance. We really do so much and we pack our weeks, but we really, don't like want to make ourselves go crazy. And we always like push this for our audience. Like life is for living. We're searching financial freedom. And I know you got to get there, but we really like work-life balance. So what does your weeks kind of look like now that you've built this company up and you now have more financial freedom?
I personally love what I do so much that it's almost like I'm not the type of person that can go and work for 5 days straight and then go on vacation for 5 days straight while not working, and vice versa. So I'm always like working and playing. Like it's like a dance of the yin and the yang. So even like last week, we were on vacation in Cabo. When my wife and daughters are taking a nap, like I wake up earlier and I'm shooting a podcast, or I'm working out, or I'm on my meeting with my team. And then when they wake up, we go have breakfast, just family time. And then they always go take a nap for like 2 hours. And then I'm on an IG live, or I'm having, like for me, that's the way I love it. It's just like a constant dance, and they're always just flowing, but it's almost like it's all just one. I don't really have like this separation where I'm like, okay, unless there's a specific thing, right? Maybe we're having dinner. It's like, okay, my phone's over here. This is family time. And then there's time when it's just business. But I personally love the dance where I'm always doing both.
And I think everybody works differently. So it's important, even for the audience listening now, find what works for you, because it's not always like, not everyone works well with that. Like for me, I sometimes need to actually be packed out on the weekend and not be next to my phone and just like have a release. And then during the workday, I'm all about it. Yeah. But you like the dance. You like, your wife is sleeping, you're working a little bit, and then you guys go to lunch. I think it's important to figure out what type of dance you like, what type of flow you like, what is going to keep you consistent in the long term and not make you burn out and not make you feel like you hate your life.
Yeah. Like my buddy the other day was like, what time do you wake up? And I'm like 8, 7:30, sometimes 9, like 8 hours from whatever time I go to. He's like, you don't wake up at 5 a.m. every day? He's like, bro, I wake up at 5 a.m. He's like, I was like, look, it's not about what time you wake up. It's about what you're doing during the hours that you're awake. And as long as you're productive and things get done.
For me, I'm the same way. Like I don't need to get up at 5 a.m. and do 1,000 things. Like I like to have a slower morning. I like my Pilates. I like my gratitude journal, and I get shit done during the day. And when shit needs to be done, I get it done. But I'm not a workhorse. I don't feel like I constantly need to be busy or need to be like working myself to be productive. I'm productive. I get stuff done. We have our flips we're going to sell. I'm making my good money. Like I don't need that constant like busy, And
I think it's important to know your time clock. That's something I really learned, is that like I know friends who during the night, their brain is on and they're so productive, and like being aware of those times is super important. Like for me, I'm just the best in the morning. So that's my only time that I get either alone or like really a lot of clarity. Because when it hits 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock for me, like I really shouldn't be working. Like my productivity, my brain, it's just foggy. Like I am not on. That is my time. I go for a walk, hang with my friends. So it's like I am a 6 a.m.er, but only because that's my prime time. I operate the best. So then I'm like, oh guys, don't think it's just like I'm this over. It's really that. It's just that works best for me. So
Yeah.
I know people like even with employees and things, I'm like, if that's your best time, you need to be working then. If you work the best at 11 at night, love that. If you get your shit done, that works for you. So I think it's important to know your body and know yourself so that you get the most done.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's just about whatever works for you. I don't believe that 5 a.m. is for everyone or 9 a.m. is for everyone. It's about whatever works for you.
I'm excited for your events in LA though. So what's your goal? Like first event date? We're going to definitely be there.
You mean the big one? That's a good question. It's definitely going to be in the first quarter of 2023. Man, 2023. Most likely in like February, March, around that time frame.
Wow, I'm excited for you. I love that you're just like putting yourself out there, going to get in. Honestly, us going to events, really, I mean, I don't know if you were at Ryan Pineda's last event, but really every event that we've gone to, the networking, the like-minded people, what you learn is actually insane. And I push everybody, go to every event you can.
Yeah.
Really, it's just insane what you can learn in that time and who you can meet. You never know who can open doors. And it's been so fun for us in the podcast and going to these events, really to network in the real estate community. It really becomes such a small community where everybody knows everybody. And it's kind of just become really, really fun. You start to see the same people at different events. And it's cool that everybody has different events because you really get another time. We think it like pumps us back up. Like every 2 to 3 months, we need a little event, get super motivated and hit the ground running again when times get hard. I don't know if you feel like that.
Yeah, I'm definitely the same way. Like, I love going to events and just networking and surrounding myself with like-minded people. And I think it's super important because, at least for me and a lot of the people I know, their family members don't have the same mindset. They're not entrepreneurs and not investors. So you got to go and find these people that are basically like the crazy ones, right? The only ones that are crazy enough to think that we could do something completely different against the grain, build a business rather than just a conventional like 9 to 5 and call it a day.
Yeah. I love that. And we were just saying that we need to do it every 3 months now, only because you're right. We don't have those people in our day-to-day lives. Like we have really good friends that support our career, but they don't necessarily light us up when it comes to work, because they're not in the same field of work. So when we go to those events, it's like everybody thinks the same as us and everybody's like, oh yeah, I'm going to make $1 million this year. I'm going to do 20 flips. And we're like, you just don't meet a lot of people like that. So I think it's so important to go and get like refueled with your motivation.
Because we could tell our friends and family, like, oh, okay, we're going to do 12 flips this year. They're like, holy shit, that's a lot. Like, and blah, blah, blah. We go to a conference. They're like, it's like, I'm doing 300. I'm like, oh, God, step it up.
I love that feeling, though, when it makes you feel like you're the brokest person in the room. That's how you know you're in the right room.
Yeah. Did you go to Ryan's?
So I was at a previous event, and then from there, I flew to the Tykes Mastermind, and I was only there for that day. So I didn't stay for the rest, and I started seeing it on Instagram. I'm like, man, I should have stayed. It looked like so much fun, way bigger than I thought it was going to be. I mean, it looked like it was a huge success.
And Alex Tormosius, it was awesome.
I'm definitely going to be at the next one. I know he's doing it like every 3 to 4 months, so I definitely plan on being at the next one.
Yeah, who's been your favorite event that you've been to so far?
Oh, man, there's so many, but I was at an event called ClickFunnels right before Ryan's, and Ed Milet was there speaking, so that was really amazing. This is like the platform that a lot of the digital online coaches, creators use. Like a much more effective way to market than like a traditional website, but it goes really deep, different levels.
Thank you so much for coming on. It was great to meet you. So where would you send the viewers? Your Instagram, TikTok? Like what is your main platform you like people to go to?
Yeah, Instagram is good. At the Jorge Contreras.
Okay, got it. Wow. Jorge Contreras. So if you guys have any questions about Airbnb Arbitrage, this is the guy. He is everywhere.
Go to learn though. What's your website?
It's the same. It's thejorgecontreras.com.
Wow, nice. How many students do you have right now?
Like active on my coaching calls, maybe about 50 to 60, but we've had over 3,000 students in the last 4 years.
Wow. That's amazing.
Good for you. And really teaching and like showing people, we're love when everybody like the coaching and the teaching. I mean, that's how we've learned so much. And like the value that it offers, not going. I mean, people spend 4 years in higher education and then get a silly job that they hate. And like this, you can really dive in and build the life of your dreams. So it's really awesome what you're doing. Yeah,
it's pretty awesome. Actually, I helped Ryan start Future Flipper back in like 2019. Obviously, when his social media came on, it just went to a whole other level, but I helped them create like the foundation of the coaching programs and things like that.
Oh my God. That's insane. And he's like, oh my God.
But he blew up so fast, and it was crazy to watch his journey through like COVID time.
Blow up. Like, what was it that like
Consistency over COVID.
really? It was just that.
Got Grant Cardone coming to his office.
I know. That's crazy. Yeah. So thank you so much for coming on, you guys. And thank you guys for listening. And we will talk to you soon, all right?